Hey everybody, my name is Inarra Ariane Griffin. I'm a spiritual business coach and a conscious business coach, and I am going to take you through 60 minutes of the profound opportunity that there is to create your own podcast. So I'm just going to let people in, welcoming everybody who's coming in. Welcome, welcome. And also to say that I have a lot of people who signed up for this from the States. And so the timing won't work for you unless you're a really early bird person. But what will happen is I'll be able to send you the replay. So it doesn't matter how you're experiencing this. If you are live, what you get is to ask questions. But welcome. And today is very exciting because one of the things that I've been doing is spending 2 years coming to this place of wanting to do the work on podcasts. It's a slow burn for me. It wasn't something that I wanted to do quickly. I'm known so much for launching things just like this. I teach people to launch things just like that, but not with this. This was a slow burn where I really wanted to go in and study podcasting as one of the most significant marketing tools that is possible on the planet right now. And there's so many things I'd like to talk to you about into this space about why podcasting. But what I'd like to do as well is welcome everybody who's here, welcome those of you who are watching the replay, and give you an idea of how this is going to run today. So I will do a little introduction and tell you about myself, just so you understand the position that I come into looking at podcasts from. Then I'd like to know a little bit about you. It'd be really interesting to see who's here, what led you here, and if you have a podcast topic. Then we're going to go into some actual looking at statistics of why podcasts, not just the stats, but the whole arena of why podcasts and why now. And for me to hopefully inspire you to want to do your own podcast. Here comes another. And give you a little bit of idea about why the timing of this. You are in such an incredible position, not only in your life to be able to do things which are, from afar. You can do it anywhere that you are on the planet, but also it's the timing in history. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, Helen. Welcome, Edwina. Welcome, Deepshika. So I'm just doing a little intro right now to tell you, hey, Edwina, lovely to see you.
Forgive my tardiness. I've just wrapped up a mastermind call.
Oh, no problem. We're all coaches and we all do that kind of thing. But where I'm at, I was just telling how the day will go, how this 60 minutes will go. And I wanted to just say that I would love to hear from you guys about if you have an idea about a podcast, even the content, what's the name, anything that comes to mind, because I know you're in a process of inquiry. But I want to give you a little bit of my perspective. And then when we get to just before the hour, I'm actually going to make you an offer to be able to go further in this. So know that I will do that later on for those that it's appropriate for. And for those that it's not, this in itself is a masterclass that you will get great benefit out of. So I'll start by just welcoming you all and saying, where are you in the world? And please drop that in the chat, because this is part of what is so unique about podcasting is I'm doing this at a time when none of the Americans will show up. Wow, Bangalore, India, Australia. I know there's somebody else here from England because I know you, but Bangalore, whoa. How amazing is that? Australia, And you think, I'm in London, I've just decided to do something right now, reach out to the world. This is a new topic that I'm speaking on. And yet there are people coming in from that level of location. And by the time it goes out to the replay, then all the Americans will join because it was mostly Americans who signed up for this. And that is a great sign because one of the facts that I want to give you right now is a bit mind blowing. There's so many stats that you can find overwhelming, but I want you to get this. We know how big America is in terms of the mover shakers that they are, how they're often ahead of the game. They take on tech, how Brits are slightly more cautious. They'll stay behind the scenes, and I think Australians will as well. There's slightly more of a cautious methodology to the way they like to learn. But in America right now, a third of the population are watching 22 hours of podcast per week. Now, in my reckoning, because I had to type in, what does that mean? What does it look like? That is 111 million people just in that one country are already scheduling themselves into listening to podcasts per week. And there's a really big difference in terms of how we experience the trainings, the teachings, the storytelling, the concepts behind podcasts versus the way we engage with social media. And I think it's worth mentioning that right at the beginning. I've been plodding along on social media for many, many years. I'm not tech shy, let's say. I used to be a professional photographer at one point. So anything to do with stats, learning new tech, it's not out of my reach. But what blows my mind is that with social media, we go on for it's a 5-second attention span now, literally. If you want to get your headline in there, if you want to get people to observe and engage with you, you have 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, done. And when that's finished, the algorithms that are working right now, let's say in Instagram, you will see somebody who follows you, somebody who actually wants to know about your content, you will see 7% of that person's content. And if you get more and more successful, like some of these multi-million generating, sort of celebrities, the more successful they get, the less the followers see. So it's 1%. By the time you're super, super mega successful, 1% of your audience will see what you do. And it disappears in about 48 hours. Gone. So one of the most significant things about this tech world that we've got going on now is we have burnout. And all of us who are a bit older, remember a time when you might sit down and listen to an entire radio episode or watch a whole program on TV that might be an hour long on nature or whatever. And the pacing of it was very different. The way that we learned was very different. It was slower, it was intimate, and it had an engagement factor which would build up slowly. It wasn't like this, hey, get my attention, hey, like that. And when they added sound to Instagram, I found it almost unbearable. It was just people screaming their offers at you. And where I'm at now, quite honestly, I've told Edwina that, is that I watch cat reels. I watch animal rescue stories. I will watch the entire thing of an animal rescue story more than I would watch anything to do with anybody's offers. And that's what's happening. The more that we pump this 5 seconds, then it'll be 2 seconds, then it'll be 1 second, like buy me, like that. The more of the turnoff factor is in a really deep way. You're not actually going to social media to learn anything. You're going to social media just to see that somebody has a presence. And it's important in the scheme of things of how you can use it to promote your podcast. But the difference in podcasting is you've got an intimacy with your audience. They behave completely differently. Once they find you, once they know what is happening in your topic, they build trust with you. and it's a slow process. So they will book you into their schedule to be able to be listened to. Let's say your podcast is going to be 30 minutes or 45 for an interview. They will book that in during their car journey on the way to work. They will book it in during their exercise, during cleaning the house, or being in the space that you're in. And it's a very different relationship than this speedy, like, oh, I'm seeing something, catch hold of it before it goes. So the trust that's built is immense. And what that means is that when you actually look at how podcasts differ in the way that people are experiencing them, they get to know the host very well. That positions the host immediately as an expert. It doesn't even matter if you are doing a 15-minute on, say, business tools or gardening tools or, whatever, something like that, 15 minutes. The intimacy of 15 minutes versus 5 seconds is enormous. And people start to develop this connection to you. The more they see you, the more they feel they know you. And this is something that's a bit scary, but it's a fact, is that some of the political campaigns that go on, like, let's say Donald Trump, why do people vote for Donald Trump? Because he's always in the view of the media, always. Doesn't matter whether it's negative, positive. The more views that he has, there's this uncanny thing that happens in our brains where we think, oh, I've seen it, so therefore it's good. It means it's a sound proposition because I've seen it. Well, this is kind of what happens with podcasting, because podcasting originally started only 15 years ago and it focused on audio. So it was like listening to a very deep radio show. Now what's happening with the algorithms is YouTube is pushing it as the highest seen content. And so if you are considering doing a podcast, one of the things that you might want to consider is you can stick to audio for the rest of your life, or you can consider that after a certain period of time of doing audio, which builds this niche audience that trusts you, you may also then want to go into the visuals. And when you go into the visuals, so that would be like an entire chapter or a show that you do, you want to take the time to build up this audience, because you don't need that many numbers to actually make an enormous difference. There is a way of promoting, and there's a system which I've learned, that when you start your podcast, like the actual very first day, you can be voted as, newcomer, great newcomer to listen to, and you only need 150 people. Like, that's how low it is versus, and there are methods of doing that, which I can speak about and elaborate later. Edwina's saying, is there a reason not to start with video? You can always start with video and you can keep the content for sure. Absolutely. Because I want to do video. But even within me wanting to do video, I would always do a lead-in time of audio only. This is part of the marketing plan. And the reason for that is because when you have audio only, it goes straight to Apple. Apple is the number one that you want to focus on, even though when you build your platform and you send your recording to the platform that you choose, more on that in a minute, it will distribute it to all the different outputs of podcasts. So Apple is one of them. YouTube is the visual other one. There's Spotify, and there's a number of different ones. So you want to be on all of them. And your platform that you send forward will always send it to all of them. And you set up that from the outset. But the intimacy and what happens with the algorithms as well is that if you take time to become the audio first, so there's staging of this, how you move it out into the world, it's actually, you will gain your audience, which is entirely yours. It can never be taken away. That's like Instagram, etc. They can just shut you down in a minute. You develop this very close group of people. And then it's a method. Then you launch and do it all on YouTube. And so it will be just in the pacing of it, it doesn't mean that you will always stick to audio, but it will mean that for the first few months, it's a very good idea to stick to audio, and all the experts say that too. So I want to give you a little intro of who I am. Why am I speaking about podcasting? I've worked in business coaching, and specifically conscious business coaching, conscious businesses, and spiritual business coaching for the last 14 years. And during that time, Edwina and I, for instance, met in, I don't think we met actually in the same program, but we did the same program with a coach whose main focus was building lists. And so all of the juice of that knowledge I took into my business many, many years ago. And it was about learning to have an audience which can never be shut down by, platforms such as, they can shut down YouTube, incidentally. They can shut down Instagram. They can shut down your Facebook account. So all of these things can be shut down. And one of the things that was so amazing about the knowledge that we learned at the time was, if you have an independent list and you build your list over years, you can sell directly to your list. But the other thing about it is it's got this trust factor. People trust you. And so that was one of the biggest marketing pieces that I took on when I was going through learning business and my skill sets in business, just so you understand that as well, of who is seeing this and who is speaking to you right now. I started as a professional photographer. I started also in film, actually, pre that. So I'm used to media, to being seen, to going out, but I was always behind the scenes. I was the one who was always behind the scenes of the camera. Didn't matter whether it was film or photography. I positioned myself as being somebody who would bring out the best of somebody by them being in my presence, if you like, and learning all the kit. And then there was a key moment in my life where I thought, I don't want to be working on my own all the time. And there's a social missing in being a solo photographer. And so I segued into something else without even knowing what it was. I said to the universe at that point, this is the spiritual bit, I said, that's it. That is the end of a chapter of a cycle for me. And I know it. I know it right in here. And I have no idea what to do next. And in those moments, I had achieved a mastery with the level of work that I did in photography and understanding its impact, the visuals and all of that. But then there was a piece of the mysteries, which is dropping into this space of, I'm surrendering, I have no idea. In short, I got approached by a coaching group online who said, do you want to change your life? I was like, yes. And we interacted back and forth. The next thing I know, I end up training in property, keeping it quiet. I didn't tell anyone, especially my parents and especially my close friends, because I felt that this deep inner churning, changing that was going on with me was going to actually lead to a great future, but that they wouldn't understand it. They loved me in film. I'd studied for it. So I would have all this convincing energy like, hey, what are you doing? Why would you possibly give up this career? So I did it on my own, quite privately. At 3 months, the homework was to go and buy an apartment or a flat in London. And I just like, come on, who gives you that kind of homework? Sure enough, I did. And I built a £10 million little mini empire by learning a new skill set, going into it with a completely open heart, became very good at business in terms of that era of my life. I was sitting with heads of banks, negotiating things, learning project management, I can't tell you. And then there came another point around the 2008 crash, which happened all over the world. These are things that can happen, which, like COVID as well, that you completely get changed in what you're actually going to be doing. You don't understand at the time that you are at the mercy, if you like, or also you are a changeable being, that things are always going to change. And so I saw what happened when literally businesses were shutting down overnight, where threads of getting funding were shut down overnight. And it was a really quite a dark period in business. Then all the time I was doing retreats throughout all of this, and that took over. I had a whole retreat business. Then I built a yoga festival in London, which ended up going for 4 years. Then again, I felt the switch. No, this is shifting. At that point, I got asked by a lot of people, will you coach us? Because I'm an unusual woman on that level. I don't just do one thing. And there's a lot of my audience who relate to that. There's seasons, cycles, and all of them, I've written books, I've written 5 books, all of them, I get to a place where I'm like, I'm not just dabbling in this, like this is like total success, when I want to do something. And all the time for all of those different businesses, I have watched marketing trends. It's been this observation of what is happening, what is out there. And this is what led me to the 2-year exploration of looking into doing a body of work around podcasting. That work, when you do something which is, let's say, half an hour in a week, there are 40 outputs of that one piece of work that you can do with podcasting. So there is nothing lost in it in terms of a marketing chunk. If there's one thing that you were going to do in a week, you start to build into your week. In my opinion, at this time, we are in the prime space, literally, when you think it's been going for 15 years only, and now you're starting to see the traction that's happening. There was a big upswell that happened around COVID because people were forced to stay at home. They had no idea how to get their message out or do any business. Again, businesses were shut down overnight. If they didn't have some kind of longevity vision, and they didn't know how to be flexible enough to change onto a different platform. I was doing events. I had to shut down so many events at the time, physical. All of those morphed very easily online because I am that flexible. I can move with the times and understand what is the juice that we're learning right now. So there was a swing that went up in COVID, and then it's come down to a nice pace to invite you now, if you've got a great topic and it needs to be niche and you need to think about doing it for at least 6 months to a year, right? So these are the kind of parameters around the thing. Then what you can do is you can produce one piece of a body of work in a week, and that will have 40 outputs. It can be changed into a book. It can be changed into a blog. There are AI tools that you can employ, many of which I would really recommend not to write your content, because I'm a deep believer, like you got to have it's got to be close to source, and you are the source. But in terms of saving time, in terms of a production, it is so useful, some of the tools that I will tell you about on AI. One of them, for instance, I was speaking to a client yesterday who her biggest concern was, what happens if I dry up or I lose the plot in terms of what I'm talking about? And I said, one of the AI tools that you can do is you can look up the most searched questions in your topic. And you will see on this, you can do multiple searches. And when you start to see what people are searching for, so I checked out, I'm about to launch Conscious Business Magic. And I checked out what are the biggest topics that are being talked about or questions asked about conscious business. And guess what? The biggest one, we're talking thousands of people ask, what is conscious business? That's the number one question. And the fact that there weren't any others, when I put in something like, say, podcasting, you can see hundreds of questions, and you'll see the way that it presents it is in a graph. So you see the dark orange ones are the most asked, and then the lighter orange ones are the least asked. But you just take those questions and then you answer those questions. That's a chapter of your podcast. And I said to her, you will never dry up. You've got great material anyway. She's got an amazing topic. and she's not here, so I can't mention it, but she's about to launch. And because I do so much messaging and branding with people, I'm like, this woman she's got a really cool podcast coming out. But if she had a week where she was feeling like, oh my God, I don't have a guest, or I don't have a conversation just like this, or I'm really busy in the family, all she needs to do is look up what is the most searched topic, and she will be able to come up with that as a podcast episode. Here comes the cats. There's always a cat. So what happens with AI is it doesn't replace you in any way, shape, or form. I mean, having been a writer and written 5 books at this point and chapters in other books, I would never, ever want AI to be the voice of me. However, what it's great at is doing things like it can take the recording of your actual podcast, and then you can quickly get a transcription, and you could ask it to do, say, 1,000-word rejig of those words, and to put it out on a newsletter or to put it out on a blog. That's where it's very useful and time friendly, because suddenly you're able to focus really on being the content creator. You are the creator. And there's a certain profile of people who will be really exceptional with this. It will be somebody who, like Edwina, would be perfect for this. Edwina has no end of conversations, stories, angles that she looks at things. I believe you were a journalist at one point, weren't you? Were you? No. Come in and speak to me for a minute. Unmute. You're muted.
Naturopath, slightly different, but I've always had a passion for writing and English and language, and yeah.
Right. And so naturopathy, you would not hand over to AI. No. But you could see the point of using it in moving your systems forward, so that you, as the naturopath, you will have your position, you'll have all of the mastery that I was talking to you about before. You come to a certain stage in your understanding of something, in your passion. And actually, I would say that one of the biggest things about podcasting is it's your authenticity. It's the number one factor that I would say, if I have to answer that question to some of my clients, who has innately got something that's going to work in podcasting, it will be people who have got a completely unique take on the world. Your uniqueness and not trying to be like somebody else is going to be the thing that makes you fly in podcasting, particularly in many things. And so what you're looking at is we've come to a place, and here I want to just tap into that. You've heard about many of the things I've done successfully. I've had a few duds along the way as well, so it wasn't all like woohoo, but I've done some great things very successfully in my life. So why did I take so long to look at podcasting? I didn't want it to be a quick launch. And we're in a world where everybody is like launching like speed. And because of the work that I do as a spiritual business coach, and I really talk about cycles, seasons, timing, the moon, where are you in the moon cycle? What is your peak expression? Where do you gain your energy back by stepping back, pausing? All of those factors came into it for me. So I was like very impressed with podcasts. Oh, a little aside as well. You don't have to listen to them to be a good podcaster. It's a totally different profile. So don't believe that, because I never listen to them. I listen to coaches. I might listen to master classes, but I do not listen to podcasts. Does that make me, inauthentic? No. It means that I'm a content creator up the front end of it. And it doesn't mean that my behavior would in any way necessarily be a consumer of them. Doesn't mean that you won't be a good one. Some people believe that you have to do everything, like what you're looking for is me as my audience. Wrong. I am me, and the audience is very, very different than me. but I'm somebody who can produce content at any given time. So as I was coming up to this exploration of, is this the right fit? I slowed down. I wanted to really deep dive into this because when you start a podcast, most people will end after the 7th episode. That's a fact. They go dry after 7 episodes. And that isn't how podcasting really works. Actually, the success in podcasting is those people who continue. So if you see that, well, most people will end after 7 episodes, it took me a very long time to want to know fully, full body hit, that this is part of my legacy work. I've inquired into all the reasons why it would work, because I can do it from anywhere, because I can do it in a mobile way, because I could talk till the cows come home, basically, which is a very English saying. And I know that as I develop the conversations, I can interview a gazillion people because I'm always doing it anyway. It's a fit on so many levels. And so the cycle I'm in is a cycle of legacy. And I've done many other things where it was like, oh, I want to try this, or I'm up for the money, I'm up for the game. There's lots of things that have been the drivers behind what I've done. But this is legacy. I've come to a place in my life where I want something that will work for the rest of my life, right? And it's one of those things where I want to influence business. This is the legacy. To be able to bring in a level of consciousness that would alter the patterns we have, the way we interact with the planet, the people, and the animals on the planet. I want to do good. I want to give back. I want to mentor. I want that to be for free. So there's a certain level of give, which is I'm of service, and podcasts really work for that. However, because I'm also really astute as a businesswoman, I want to make money. I want to make money easily. I want to make money easily sitting at home talking. And if you take it on like that, like this is not just, half of it is for me, it's like really the good vibes and connection and all of that, and interviews I love. But it is really one of the most staggeringly useful marketing hub activities to add to the string in your bows, for you to develop over time at a pace that works for you, right? So it's a nice pace. And we know there are some real major success metrics going on right now that if you take this on, even like a sideline, this can be something that you can build in monetization at every single step of the way, including launch day. So I want to give you an example of people that I heard about, and this will it's kind of cute. So there were people who talk about dog behavior, right? They were a couple of friends. They knew that one of their skill sets that was good was that they co-host, they speak together. It's not just one person taking on the whole load. And they agreed, all right, why don't we try a dog podcast? So shortly before they launched, they hadn't got a clue what they were doing. Literally, it was like blank slate. We know we want to do something with dogs. We know we've got the skill set and we love dogs, etc. But they really hadn't planned in a great way. They went to the pub, they were drinkers, and they spent one night going into what would a 6-month program look like for dog lovers on dog behavior. In that night, they created an outline. They didn't even have a strong, like it wasn't even a course. It was just an outline. But enough that by the time they launched their podcast on day 1, and they used this technique, which I will explain at some point. It may not be the right at this time, but there is a technique that you can launch, you can monetize it, and you can also get high into the ranking. And this is what they used. So what they did was they said to people, we're going to run a competition on the first day of our dog training, and we're going to offer somebody will win this 6-month course. They had only just figured out what the course was, and essentially, the course was just them having a conversation per week to these people. So it was like a private group. They had no VIP offer. It was just basically a private group, people learning. And they announced the winner. So somebody did win it, but the other 25 people or so who had attempted to win the thing, they contacted individually and they said, we're sorry you haven't won. We're going to put you in a group where there'll be another competition later on. But in the meantime, you can actually do this training with us and just buy it. And we're going to give you a discount. On the launch day that they launched, they made £25,000 from doing that. That's day one. And then what happened was they've created a course which is hardly, it's just a conversation every week, right? Which is a piece of cake for them. They have a private group who do that. And at the end of the 6 months, the audience were so blown away by what they learned in that the audience requested a higher level course. So they then automatically just fed, what does the audience want? Because these audiences that you're speaking to, they're deep listeners. They're deeply following what you do. And what happens is when you are positioned as somebody who interviews others, somebody who's in the conversation, or somebody who's dropping information, by nature, you become the expert. And so when you say, hey, people, I'd like to invite you to a special, let's say, masterclass or a live retreat, or there's an event, a one-day event that I want to invite you to, or there's a competition, or there's an opportunity, or there's a program, your audience listens. And that's one of the biggest differences between social media. Now, you use social media so that the methodology of doing this is you choose your topic, and you choose something which, in terms of its listening, when people are, the first piece of marketing with this is your title, is your actual podcast title. And one of the things that it needs to do is say what it does on the tin, which is a very English expression. We have washing up liquid, and guess what washing up liquid does? It helps you with washing up. And so rather than the brand name, you want the function of the thing. You want the thing that they learn from it to be part of your titling. And you basically set up this one piece, you upload to a platform, it distributes it all over the place. And then what you would do is you would create clips. If you're doing the visuals, let's say, or even the audio, you are doing highlight clips of your podcast. That's one of the meaty, juicy pieces of the content that you want, these highlight clips. And then that becomes your social media. You basically, let's say you did it on a Tuesday, the week before, or even the month before, where you could load up 4 different episodes for 4 weeks in the month. You also do all the clips. You do the shorts. If you're going to do something, you can do clips, shorts, and long version, which can be uploaded to different platforms. So the long version, for instance, would go to YouTube. YouTube now one of the most significant things that's happened is YouTube now uploads shorts and clips. So you feed one to the other. You could see a short thing on Instagram which announces a conversation that blows your mind, a little clip which is like a peak moment in something. You could watch a short of it on YouTube and think, oh, I really want to see that full-length thing. Then I book in and I go to the full-length thing. So all of these shorts or clips, actually, me as a social media person, I think I never plan in advance. It's always like, what am I doing in the moment? And so there's a certain vibrancy to my content. It's real. It's not planned so far in advance. But you could imagine the power of starting to do this, where you just do this one thing, then you produce 40 outcomes. You won't want all of them, but you will pick and select what it is. If it's a blog or it's going to be a newsletter, then you'll pick your clips. That covers all your social media for the week. That's 7 different clips, 7 different days. You only want to upload once a day. You can do more, obviously, but it starts to become a system that really the only thing that you're doing is the rest is the system. The first bit is the content. And that's the bit that you want to keep completely uniquely yours. I just wonder if there are any questions at this point, because we're starting to build into an amazing conversation about this. And I hope I'm convincing you at this point how powerful this is. Am I convincing you?
I love the idea of it. It's, I start to feel a bit overwhelmed when I think about the time involved in taking all the clips out, and then it's paying somebody else to do it and so on. But it's just, I think it's going to be one of those things that once you get in the rhythm of it, it just gets easier and faster.
Well, it is. And I think, I have a VA who's worked with me for 7 years.
Mm.
She is great at certain things. So I could absolutely get her to do all the newsletter content, we could create a blog, we could create that kind of thing. But there's a techie VA that I use, who's overseas, and she basically is somebody who would just be able, I would just send her the clip and there would be a method that we would get into. It wouldn't be particularly costly. And that's
No.
one of the other things that I want to really emphasize here is one of the great things is with your kit, it can be your phone.
Mm.
If you were to add 2 extra bits to it, I would say the mic, well, 3 extra bits, mic, a recording device where actually it keeps all the back catalog of your recordings at the top level, because audio, you want to be amazing when people listen to it. In the car, when you're turning up because of the noise in the car, if you've got pops and clatter, and you're putting cups down and these are the things that you have to learn to do in a silent place, in a really careful place with spongy, soft things around you. But really, all you need is a mic, and I can recommend the mic, a recorder device, which is something which retains content, does backup, and doesn't compress it. Because one of the other things, and then you would need earphones. Earphones are essential too. But once you've got those, for the rest of your life, the only thing that you would ever be changing is some aspect of that. If it was, like you needed to change the phone. The upgrades on phones, like if you have Apple phones or Samsung, some of these really high level, they're a piece of kit. They're so excellent at video now. My Apple iPhone shoots in 4K. So it's like it's screen quality, like big screen quality on my little phone. And every time I upgrade, which is maybe once every year and a half to 2 years, I'm getting the next best kit piece always. So it's not like I think, oh, I'm upgrading because of that. That's what's happening with it. It just happens, and you're always upgrading. The systems are not as difficult once you've set up your show notes, which are really key. Show notes, we now call it a show rather than a podcast. So you're at the beginning of seeing that these things are like media empires, right? Even the description that's changed, it's now a show. What you have is you've got this this perfect kit from your perfect home, doing hardly any investment. You can go to a studio, of course, you can do all of that kind of thing, but really at the lowest level, there are podcasters who they keep that unique quality of the way they are. They don't, it's not flashy. It's not like, hey, I'm in a studio interviewing people with enormous kit. It's actually very homey. And that's why I work in my kitchen, because I want people to experience my coaching. This has always been a choice for me. I wanted them to experience the comfort of sitting with me in my kitchen and being able to be taught at a very high level of business, but with the comfort of, hey, we're just having a chat, I'm having my matcha. That's the kind of energy and that's the style that I chose. but you can choose any angles on this. You can go from the lowest level of just, I'm going to just throw on the camera, stick my earphones on with a mic, or you can even be less than that. You could use the microphone in the phone. The sky isn't even the limit. We know who said that, but the sky isn't even the limit on this. And what I wanted to just get you aware of, because there's so much to go through this. Let me just find this. This one is, why is podcasting different in 2024? It's become now a show, as I just mentioned, not a podcast. It's become your media empire. There's omnipresent content repurposing, which I've said there are at least 40 outputs. You can't even imagine what they are, but it's like clips, books, videos, presentations, you name it. I could give you all of them. When guests now ask for downloads, you can give them all the stats. You can tell them who is listening, where are they listening. You can start to tweak your messaging. Like, I have a lot of Americans listening to me, and I could tweak a lot of my content when I'm doing conscious business magic towards the Americans, because I'm seeing who's coming in. That's one of the things. And you can give them all of the stats. So when people are talking about sponsorship is one of the big monetizations, incidentally. You can get a sponsor. Let's say I'm in conscious business, and there's a company that I'm interested to promote. They're called the Hairy Plant Pot Company. The Hairy Plant Pot Company is absolutely brilliant because it's fighting the war on plastic, right? It's taken out plastic plant pots, and it puts them in this kind of hemp core, they call it, pot. You can plant the actual plant in the core, and it doesn't cause everything is biodegradable. The plant can grow in the thing that it's in, there's no waste, blah, blah, blah. It's amazing. Now, if I wanted to do a whole episode on the Hairy Plant Pot Company, which I do, I could contact them in advance, ask them if they want to not only be on the podcast, but do they want to sponsor the podcast? And you could set in fees that you're starting to include into this for that one episode. Now, if I'm interested in something as a broad sponsor, I would be very interested in working with the Cooperative Bank. Cooperative Bank got known way, way back when apartheid was still live and flourishing in South Africa. And the Cooperative Bank said, we will not invest in any dirty business, any dirty dealings around the world. So I checked them out recently, and I was like, are they still functioning like that? Do they still have a stand? Absolutely. They've got partnerships. And what you want to be looking at is media partner, head of media partnerships, head of partnerships, because those people have money to fund things which gets the word out about them. And here's the thing with something like the bank. Just imagine if I was saying as a pitch to that bank, I don't even need to give you stats. I'm launching and I want you to be the main sponsor. But what I can say to you is that 100% of my audience, like 100% of my audience, will be interested in your product. And that's a fact. So these are the kind of ways that we can start to work with the energy of podcasting. I mean, in terms of monetization, it's serious money. When you look at people like Joe Rogan, for instance, to even be on Joe Rogan's show, it probably is somewhere between 10,000, 30,000 to actually be on it. And then on top of that, the listeners, you can create a membership site. You've just got hundreds of ways of people coming into your space listening. And you may not be ready to do a membership site right off. You may not be ready to do all of the sponsorship deals right off. But as you consistently output this content that you're interested in, then you can add another string to your bow. And that's that piece that I like about the pacing that I was talking about. You don't have to do it all at once. You just have to have the great idea. You have to have marketing which pops. You've got to say what it does on the tin so people know what they're getting from you. And then the gradual build up of an audience. When you start to pitch to them, boy, do they listen. So, as you can see, there are a gazillion things, and I could talk about tech, I could talk about cash flow, community, etc. I need so much time to go into this, and that's why I want to mention that I am doing a course. I'm doing a 4-week course on this. That what I can guarantee is if you do the course, by the end of it, you're ready to go like that, including the tech, including knowing your systems and everything in between. One of the pieces that I am a real expert in is messaging. And I would do a session with you, which is called Positioning Your Message and Brand, which when I've looked at all the podcast trainings that are out there, there's a big piece missing on all of the messaging and the way that you go into that. That is a huge part of your marketing. And so that's something that I'm an expert in. So I would take you through that for your own brand. But not only that, you will learn from square one how to monetize, everything to do with this, how to set up the kit, which will be perfect for you at the level that you want, how to come up with at least 10 podcasts that we would do before you even launch. So you want 10 already done before you launch. And a little bit about cycles. This is relevant at any time of year. However, the reason I'm doing it right now, because I work with seasons, cycles, and all of the rest of it, is because June has got this peak energy. It's got a peak. It doesn't matter where you are. If you're in the southern hemisphere like Edwina is, or you're in the northern, these are peak moments of solar. And the messaging around solar visibility, it's like the ultimate masculine energetic. You want to know where you are around about the summer solstice of each year or the winter solstice of each year, because there's deep insight coming in at that time around really who you are in the world. It's like straightforward, who am I? You can add the drama because it's the solar part. But at this time of year when we're working, the insight level is enormous. So to wrap it up in 4 weeks going into July, then what I always say is the spaciousness that you need in August is when to create content. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, that's when everybody goes away. They're off with the kids. There's nothing that you can sell them unless you're working like on a campsite or a kids thing. Forget it. Don't launch in August ever. But if you get all the content ready, you have all the training now to understand exactly what you're doing, be ready to go. You launch in September. This is I think it's the most powerful sales cycle of the year, because what happens is you launch something in September, it builds energy through October. By November, you can do Black Friday deals to your audience. That goes into December, which is holiday or Christmas sales. It goes then into January, which is the new fitness year and the new start. So it goes ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. And that's why I'm doing it right now. It doesn't matter if you came in at a different time. There are certain times not to launch. And I would really make a statement about that. One of them is around Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving. Do not launch then. Do not launch through the Christmas season. But if you've already launched, there's a natural conversation that happens that's very, very successful for entrepreneurs. So that's why I'm doing it. I'm going to give you the pricing, and I'm also going to say that anybody who even vaguely has an interest in this, let's have a conversation, because I would also say I'll be able to pick up whether this is a good idea for you, whether you've got a good idea, whether you need to go and do some more groundwork on it, or if it really is like, this is great for you and for your business. And so I'm launching it at, if you paid in full, it would be 1,999. So it's just short of 2,000 if you pay in full pounds. And if you want a payment plan, I would do it at 2,222. What you get for that is a training which you could launch your podcast. You will have everything that you need to know. We'll do a big piece on the messaging, the positioning of your brand. And like I said, we'll do all the monetization, because that's one of the things that I think is really missing for people. So we don't see it as you having a nice conversation for the rest of your life. We think of it more like you're going to have that nice impact, maybe legacy like me, but you're going to make money from square one, like literally on the day you launch. And you're building it like a business empire, like that. So, are there any questions, thoughts, anything that comes to mind with this? Because we have got just a few more minutes. Is there anything anybody has a burning question about?
No particular questions in my mind. I imagine, all the shows that I've done, like summits have always been, I give people, the option to have video or audio. And so I just use Zoom and use just the audio version on Zoom, and the video goes up on YouTube or on my website. I wonder why I would do it any differently. I
Well,
don't
I
know.
think
Yeah.
one thing that I'll just say there is, one of the problems with Zoom is it's great and it does all of this kind of thing, but when you have a final finished version of Zoom, there's a big compression that happens. It's one of the final things that happens with Zoom and the recordings. So you have a quite a low grade recording. So
Mm.
there are other options of actually, there are podcast platforms where you would encounter it just like Zoom. You'd send out a link from the platform. Riverside is one of them. Highly recommend Riverside. And Riverside isn't very expensive to have, as a, just like Zoom. I think I pay, I don't know what I pay, 15 quid a month, something like that, to have the option that I have. Riverside has that too. The difference with Riverside is it's the output. It puts it out at 4K. So what you're seeing is an amazing quality. And there are just little tweaks like that this is part of the system that you have choices about, but which would make all the difference in the long run. When I look back at some of my early recordings, of course, I didn't have everything together years and years ago, but one of the things I notice is it's visibly fuzzy. It's not as good quality for sure. And then as I've improved on my equipment and my choices, it's definitely better quality. But as I go towards this phase, I'm choosing like there are better options in that,
Yeah.
you know.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
but you're saying, why would you do anything differently?
Oh no, just as Zoom as the software to use. But yeah, I will have to jump off. I've been here staring at the screen for the last 2 hours with my mastermind and now this, so I can just feel it's evening and it's time for me
Yeah,
to,
you look all cozy. Well,
yeah.
that's fine. We are finishing on time.
Thank you so
Well,
much. Yeah.
pleasure. It's so
Yeah.
nice to see you, and we'll be in touch anyway.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
but for all of the rest of you, I will follow up. I'll give you insight into this course that you could jump on and do with me. I invite you to. I think even as a body of work, like working through that level so that you've got it ready to go in future will be magnificent. And again, I hope I've inspired you, because this is like an area of marketing that I think it's just got legs, as they say. It's super powerful.
Yeah.
And so I want to hear all about it. When I email you, please write me back and tell me what your ideas are, and we can discuss. Sending you so much love, so much success. Be in touch.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Mm.